She's over me. She caught me with her hypnotic dance. She holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. The claws in my heart, I can't let go, I'm breaking apart, controlling me, controlling me. And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Monday edition of the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I forgot to start up my little ghost machine, my little ghost box here, so I'm just doing that now. I sorry, didn't mean to let all that intro play for this long, but I just wanted to get this going because you just never know if tonight's the night they're just going to be really talkative. So I'm trying this out. Okay, our session is now underway. There's some volume. Okay, so if anything spiritual from the ghostly realm comes through, we will definitely be catching it here. So that is up and running, and you're stuck with me until we're done, I guess. But glad to see you all, and I hope you're all ready because it's time for bed. And back. So, all right, guys, welcome to the Paranormal Portal Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I'm thrilled you're here with me. It is Monday evening, and I hope your guys' Monday went okay. Mine was just busy all day long. My God, I got a lot done that I needed to get done. Was extraordinarily productive, and had even time to visit with a friend that stopped over. So it's just been a busy time. So I hope your Monday has been well as well. Yeah, that wasn't the best choice of words, but we are underway, and this is the Bedtime Stories, and I've got a bunch of stories pulled up for you guys. I'm just looking at the chat room here, and a lot of you guys are in here. Hey, Brian, good to see you. MCAT, Omi Nalani, hello, and Lena, Haxer, Jess, Lady Death, of course. Deb Varner is in here, as well as, who haven't I said Lewis was in here. Sarah, hello, Sarah. I'm just trying to see if I missed any names. Brian, I said Brian, but good to see you, Brian. Nice you showed up. I've been wondering where you've been at. Let's see. I'm in there, which is good. That might be all. And if I'm not seeing your name, I'm sorry. Oh, Diana. Hey, Diana. Did I already say Diana? But if not, you guys are awesome, and it's wonderful to see you. Aloha to you. Aloha to you, Lena. Wonderful. And Lena, of course, is from Hawaii, and she's been posting Hawaii pictures, which just about makes me want to cry, but in a good way, because it's warm there. Oh, hey, Matthew. How you doing, brother? Good to see you. It's about time you made it in the door. So Matthew Learned is in here, and yeah, that's great. Okay, so I think I got everybody at least that's talking now. So I like to do the shout-outs because I just want you guys to know that it means a lot to me when you're here and you're a part of the shows. And, of course, our chat rooms have always been a big part of what we do on the Paranormal Portal. You guys are like the co-host to the show as well. So I got like two co-hosts, Don when he's here and able to be here, and then you guys. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of it. You guys are truly the family. You guys are the paranormal fam. But let's get started on some of these stories, guys, and see what we can dig into tonight. Nothing paranormal been popping off anymore that I'm hearing with my father, who passed this last year in the spring. But if you haven't heard of the things that were going on, which I truly believe they were him visiting, I think it was just phenomenal and really cool. But several of them were mentioned on both a week ago Friday night show, which would have been, let's see, what was a week ago Friday night? I want to get you guys a date because I really think, okay, so last Friday so on January 4th was the first time I mentioned them. And then on the 5th as well, I think. Or was it the 6th? I don't know. But I mentioned in that period of days, I was mentioning all of the things that were coming up that appeared to be my father visiting, which was really cool. And it's really awesome because, in life, he didn't have any time for the paranormal at all. He was absolutely just a non-believer, and that's fine. It certainly wasn't a bone of contention between us. I've never felt like everybody has to believe in it and I'm not offended if they don't. I think that, it just wasn't where he was at in his life. But if these events truly are him coming through, which I truly believe in my heart of hearts that it is, and honestly, I don't believe it's just wishful thinking because it's gone along. It's also included some dream experiences as well as some manifestations of some pretty cool events. So, and they seem to be talking about him, all of them having to do with him. And so I think it's his way of pushing through and saying, everything's fine, I'm good. And maybe you're right. Maybe, but I don't know. It's just really neat though. So if any more of those things come up, outlining things he's done or we believe he is doing, I will be sure to let you guys know. But I am just absolutely thrilled that he's been coming through and has been demonstrating his presence because, what a wonderful idea, and I've said many times on the show, it's very powerful when our loved ones might still be with us, even though we have suffered the loss of their presence in the physical, we can still celebrate that they're stopping in. And I don't believe he's stuck. I really don't. I don't have a negative feeling about it all. I have just a really positive feeling about it. So I'm sure he's just visiting because I think they can do that. So let's get into some maybe more creepy kind of stories, though, because this is the portal and we cover it all here. Let me grab a drink if you don't mind. Water. It cleanses my soul. That was a throat gurgle at the end of there. That was for effect, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Okay, here we go. Let me just a sec. All right. I'll straight up say that I've never been really face-to-face with my ghosts, but I've heard and seen them and felt their presence. My house is about a generation old. I'm not too sure, but From the information I've gathered from the homemade Ouija board me and my friends made, I think a girl was murdered in this house a few years after it was built. She said her parents had had the house built in the late 1800s. I haven't really asked her, but I figured that the other ghost had killed her when he and she were alive. I also figured that he was hung for murdering her. Well, those are some pretty broad sweeps there of assumption. I think that it wouldn't be real hard to investigate this kind of thing. Murders are pretty big news in most places, and especially if it was in the late 1800s. That was very, very sensational news. Maybe it's not as sensational now, even though they're always tragic, but it certainly shouldn't be hard to find information to corroborate that. But anyway, it doesn't sound like this person has done that. Now, I've been given the brief description of my house's ghosts' history, and I can now tell you about my experience with them. My first encounter was when I was walking by my loft staircase, and I've always felt a strange presence when I walk by the stairs, and one time when I was walking past the stairs, I looked up in reflex, like when you look at someone who walks into a room. To my surprise, at the top of the stairs was the figure of a person. No, I think he meant to say not a person entirely, but a flowing outline that drifted in the corner of my vision, like when you stare at a bright light too long and you see the shape of the light stuck in your vision. From that time on, I knew my house was haunted. The second encounter I had was almost a full year later. Between that time, I had heard strange noises, like footsteps in the basement, and other than that, there was really nothing significant. It was right about this time I started using a Ouija board in my friend's house, despite the warnings my friend and I were given by another friend. And I was laying in my bed and slowly drifting asleep, slowly, and I was almost completely asleep when suddenly I heard a shrill scream coming from inside my ear. I knew no one else heard it because of the stillness of my house. At the time, I was too tired to really consider it and went to sleep. Jeez. When I woke up the next morning, I realized what had happened. The voice was a girl's voice, and it confused the heck out of me. I hadn't yet used the Ouija board in my house at this point. Then, the very next night, I was actually asleep, and I had no clue what I was dreaming about, or what time I actually woke up, or even why I woke up, but for some reason I woke up and found this person. Not a figure or a haze, a person floating across my bedroom. It was only for a split second, but that was long enough to take in a few details. It was a girl, I'm absolutely sure of it, and she had light hair, maybe blonde, that reached down to her waist. She was facing away from me and seemed to be heading towards the door. Maybe she was leaving. I didn't see her feet, but I saw the bottom of the dress she wore, and it seemed to fade away. The sight was so absolutely amazing that I really wasn't scared at all. I was more excited then, really freaked out, even though I was freaked out. It took me forever to fall asleep after that, but eventually I did. Finally, my last encounter with the ghost girl was last week when I was ill, I was sick, and I was sitting in the bathroom on the edge on the toilet. Great. And my mom was at work, the same with my stepdad, and my sister was at school. After a while, I heard the fridge turn on, but that wasn't it. I also heard the faint yet high-pitched humming noises of a muffled voice. It was singing a tune that I had never heard before, but it was really familiar. And I was coming from my basement, my sister's room, or it says I was coming from the basement, my sister's room, but I think he meant it, meaning the song. I figured it was the girl from the other night and the screamer. Then, later that day, while I was sitting on the couch watching a movie, I heard a loud boom. Jumping and turning around to see what happened, I thought it was the cats knocking something off the table, or something, not the cleanest house in the universe. So I went to investigate, and after taking a few steps, I heard another boom. It was coming from the basement. I was so freaked out, I was too afraid to go and investigate, so I just went back to the couch and sunk into my seat, hoping that whatever it was wouldn't notice me. I knew it was I knew it was any of the cats, or knew it wasn't any of the cats, I think is what they meant to say, because one was sleeping on my lap and the other was sleeping on the other couch, and the last one was outside. So that's all I have of my house's haunting. However, I wish it were more, and something I wish it weren't at all. But still, it's there, and there's no use trying to deny it. Not the best written story, but some really interesting events, and yeah, I guess it could be a female spirit. Those are tough though, because you hear about mimics and things mimicking other things, and I think the spirits can appear however they want to. So whether they were in life an actual girl or not, or I guess it's anybody's guess. But is it some stuck spirit? Maybe. But it doesn't sound like a horrible kind of experience. It doesn't sound like it's terrifying in any measure. It's just something's going on. Something wants to be noticed. And I can understand. Could you imagine, like, say, for instance, you passed away. You've passed. And for some reason, you didn't transition to whatever's next. You're just kind of stuck. And you walk around, and maybe you're in a confused state. Maybe you don't really know what's going on. But you know everything is different, and you know that suddenly nobody is looking at you, nobody is talking to you, nobody's answering you, and nobody's acknowledging you. And would that be enough to drive a spirit insane? Could there be an insanity? Could they? The thing I don't know is are they aware of other spiritual presences always? So, for instance, is the spirit world, are there spirits everywhere? Like, I personally believe everything has a spirit in the terms of it has an energetic vibration that may or may not have some form of consciousness to it. But are these spirits able to perceive those things, or is it possible that they're not even able to do that, and so their isolation is even more intense? Like, they can't see other things coming or going either. They just see that nobody's noticing them, and it's, got to be a terrifying experience. So I think sometimes just acknowledging those presences is enough. Again, I know when Jeffrey was on, he's like, there's no reason to entertain a spirit in your house. I mean, there's no reason they should be there all of the time. And he makes some good points. I guess I understand what he's saying. I don't know. To me, it's not quite as odd, but I guess it's because I believe that spirit is everywhere and in everything. And so whether or not it's a conscious or sentient kind of spirit is kind of besides the point. But I do respect his opinion quite a bit, and of course Deb's and Sean's and Diane's as well. But I don't know. I guess I've been around this stuff for so long that it doesn't make me feel weird. I just hope that they're not sitting around watching me shower and weird stuff like that. That's creepy. But anyway, let's move on, ladies and gentlemen. I got several more to bring to you on this fine evening. So the next one comes out of California, and I didn't look where that last one came from, but I guess it doesn't matter. Now, this one's not too long, but it says, this story might seem really unbelievable, but according to my parents, it's absolutely true. As I recall, the story goes a little bit like this. It was a nice, typical day. My parents got home from the grocery store and were a little bit tired and decided to go to bed and rest. And at this time, I was still just an infant, about 8 months old. They put me on the bed with them, and in the middle to be exact. This sounds familiar, like we might have read it before, but let's see. They laid there just talking about what married couples talk about, and all of a sudden, my mother noticed out of the corner of her eyes that I was being lifted from the bed. Now, this is the same story, but I'll finish it. At this moment, she assumed it was my father wanting to put me in the crib, and as she turned to face him and tell him to just let me stay there, she was shocked at what she saw. According to her, I was floating on top of the covers. No one was holding me up or anything. She immediately woke up my father, who was on the other side of the bed sleeping, and asked him if she saw what she was seeing. And at that moment, both of them were still in shock of what was happening in front of their eyes. My mother then explained that as she was seeing this, she didn't know exactly what to do, but just opted to put her hand between me and the bed covers to see if maybe it was some kind of trick. And as she moved her hand from side to side, she saw that absolutely nothing was holding me up. Immediately, she grabbed me and put me against her chest. I recall my parents telling me that they didn't know what happened that day, but since then, they haven't found any explanation for it, and they don't want to go in believing in sorcery, but they haven't found any logical explanation for what happened. After I heard that story, I sometimes wonder that since little, I had something to do with this weird occurrence. As for while I was growing up, I always saw things I couldn't explain. So what do you think? Is it just me, or is there something out there following me? Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are allegedly people. I'm not, I'm not going to say whether or not it's a true thing. I guess it's up to you to believe or not believe. But there are many accounts of people reaching a state of enlightenment in a lot of Eastern cultures where they are alleged to be able to levitate. They can lift their body up with their mind or with their spirit or whatever it is. So levitation is something that's been out there, and there's legend out there of levitating things, for pretty much as long as we've had societies. There's been stories such as people floating, and especially in a lot of Buddhist and Hindu religion, that the monks or the practitioners could reach that state to be able to do that. Now, is it possible that an infant could do that because they are already probably in a very pure state, and could they be born with that ability? And maybe it would diminish over time. Maybe it wouldn't. But what is that possible that that this person who wrote this story was actually able to do that as an infant? Can people do these things? Does it always have to be a ghost? There's a lot of different phenomena out there, and certainly ghosts would be everyone's first guess when it comes to someone levitating. But what if it's not? What if it's a telekinesis or a psychokinesis? What if? So I don't know. If that's the only occurrence that happened and nothing followed it, nothing preceded it, just suddenly a baby is floating, then it seems to me to potentially indicate, some other phenomena anyway. But we had read that one before on the show, and the problem with a lot of these stories, ladies and gentlemen, is they're repeated on many sites throughout the interwebs. So stumbling on the same stories happens. I don't know if it happens often, but it happens. So I usually try to at least peek at these stories to see if it sounds familiar. But this one I didn't notice until I was already reading it. And, it's a great story. And it brings up a great point of discussion. So, but I guess it's up to you guys to believe what you will. All right, the next one comes from California. And this is, when I was in the 4th or 5th grade, people used to say that you seem to see ghosts when you're young because you're so innocent inside. One day, my cousin Tiffany was at work, and I was left at home alone, like every day. And I went to go and use the bathroom. And when I was done, I pulled up my pants and I saw a little girl, and I saw her for like 2 or 3 seconds. I was so freaked out. She had black, short hair. She was wearing a long white gown with tiny flowers on them, and I know for sure that it wasn't me. I have long brown hair and was taller than her, and as soon as I saw her, I ran out of the bathroom and jumped 2 stacks of stairs. I don't know what a stack of stairs is, maybe a flight. A few days later, when I was home again, I was going to bed, and I walked outside my door and turned off the hallway light. And as soon as I turned it off, I heard a man say, "Raylene." I got so scared I turned the light on again and ran inside my room and locked the door. Now, that is actually the person's name who wrote the story, allegedly. Another few days later, when I was left at home again by myself, I was walking past my cousin Chris's door, and the door just slammed. My eyes just popped wide open, and I opened his door, and the windows were shut. I think about a month later, I was left home alone again, and I went over to my best friend Shelby's house across the street. And it was already really dark, and she asked me if I wanted to spend the night. My cousin always tells me to lock all the doors and turn off all the lights before I went to Shelby's, and I turned off all the lights like I was supposed to, and as soon as I was walking to my house, I saw my cousin's room light on, and I didn't know what to do because she works an hour away from home, and I knew she didn't go to the house, and I did lock all the doors. Shelby and I went inside my room and grabbed my Bible and found a prayer to bless my house and read the prayer out loud and put holy water all over my room, and ever since I did that, nothing scary has happened. I'm so glad I moved, and my aunt and cousins got a new house, so now I live with my mom. But the only thing that haunts me inside is the little girl in the mirror and feeling of a person behind me whenever I walk up the stairs. I feel like they're going to reappear. What should I do? Well, what can you do? I don't know. Keep sage and keep keep cleansing, I guess, if it really bothers you. But again, it doesn't sound malicious, but it could turn malicious. You just don't know. And that's the tough part. It would be nice if we could look at this stuff with, through positive eyes all the time. And a lot of times we just don't understand what they want. Sometimes hauntings can seem really aggressive, but they're just trying to get a message across or tell you something that they feel is very important. And so, it sometimes can be a little more forceful than it should, but I don't believe that there's, a lot of really malicious hauntings, but I think people perceive it fearfully, and therefore, it's not a good experience for them when they look at it with fear. But if we can look at it with more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not, in a not judgmental way, maybe it wouldn't be so bad, and maybe we could understand what they're trying to tell us. But I don't know. The next one is coming from Alaska. I don't see a lot of stories from up there, but then again, there's not a lot of people up there, so I don't think there's any shortage of hauntings up there, though. It sounds like there's quite a bit going on in the great state of Alaska. I've changed the names of the individuals involved, and we've all known that if we could just get someone besides ourselves to see and hear what we do, then we wouldn't feel so crazy. At least that's how I've always felt. And after so long of experienced activities in my bedroom and not being able to capture anything on film or audio, I always told myself if just one other person could experience this for themselves, but this never happened until yesterday. I rarely let any of my friends come into my room, but this day was just a really special case. Let me back up a little here. On Wednesday afternoon while at school, I made plans with one of my guy friends to hang out at one of the malls in town, and he said that he would stop by my house and we could walk there, and picking up the others in our group along the way. Now, after school, I walked home, and it was around 3 in the afternoon at this point, and I called my mom to double check with her that the outing was okay. And my call made, I went through my bag to pull out my homework so my mom would know I was done with it. And as I did, I could have sworn I heard a hiss come from the hallway. It freaked me out, of course, but since we have a cat, I didn't think anything of it. My friend showed up, and just as we were about to leave, he asked if he could borrow a manga of mine. That's a Japanese comic, if some of you don't know. And I said sure, and told him to follow me into the room so I could grab it for him. And while I was crouched with my back to him, looking for the one he wanted, I thought I heard someone whisper my name. But I ignored it, and I found the manga and stood to hand it over to my friend, and when he suddenly jerked back, as if someone or something had shoved him. He stumbled a little and seemed super freaked out, but we both chose to ignore it. Here you go. Give it back whenever you're done. I just said to break up the silence, and as we headed out of my room, with me in the lead, I heard my name again, only more clearly this time, and then my friend slammed into me hard enough to make me fall to the floor. "I'm sorry," he said. "It wasn't me. Someone keeps pushing me." Both of us got really freaked out, beyond belief, and we booked it out of my house and walked for the longest time in silence. When we got to the first house and picked up my friend Joe, the conversation picked up again, but my other friend Josh still wouldn't talk to me. He still hasn't said a word, but that night I kept hearing my name repeated over and over until I finally got fed up and slept on the couch. Why did whoever it was push my friend around? Anybody have any ideas? I don't know. Maybe it's protective. Maybe it's a protective presence that felt that maybe this guy friend was not a real good person. I don't know. And then sometimes there's jealousy, right? I mean, it is with living people that if someone feels they have a connection with someone else and then someone else comes into the picture, it can be threatening and cause problems. So maybe it's not so different for the spirits. They might get jealous too. I don't know. Just my thoughts. This one comes out of Pennsylvania. And it is, let me see. Yep, we haven't read this one. I recently wrote a story about my grandfather's ghost that my mother had told me. And now I believe I had my own experience. On Monday, April 16th of 2007, at about 4 a.m., I was standing in my kitchen. It was a week and 1 day before my stepfather Carl died. He had something on TV, but I wasn't sure what, though. And I was standing there thinking about my grandfather when suddenly I saw a black shadow figure on the TV screen. It was on the bottom right-hand corner and went about halfway up the screen. The strange thing was that it looked as if someone was in the screen looking out into our den. Also, it didn't even look like it was part of whatever was on the TV. The shadow looked like my grandfather to a T, from his bald head in the middle to his hair on the sides. I forget what did Don call that look? I can't remember what that is. That the bald top and the loop of hair going around the edges? I can't remember what he called it. But I stood there and thought that maybe just because I was thinking about him, I thought there was something there. However, when I noticed the figure, it startled me so much that it made my chest tighten up. I felt frozen in fear and really couldn't move. If it was nothing, it wouldn't have had that effect on me. And then 15 minutes later, our basement door opened by itself, and even though it wasn't closed all the way, there was no draft underground. I didn't feel any cold air at all until that door opened, and I truly believe it was my grandfather that I saw. Several weeks before, I remember being very upset. I cried and asked him why was my mother lucky enough to see him and not me. I told him that I missed him so much and that I had grown up without him. He died when I was 3. And I know what I saw and believe he heard my cries of sadness and came to see me as I wished. That could be. That's a cool story. I'm not sure what the grandfather died from, but the fact that this person felt tightness in their chest when they observed it could be a psychic transference of what happened when that person passed. Maybe it was a heart attack, but hard to know. The next one's coming from Ohio. D's land. The crazy state of Ohio. And I've been there once. It's a nice enough place, but there's a lot of things paranormally going on in Ohio. It's also home of the Grassman, ladies and gentlemen. That's their version of Sasquatch that they believe makes, it's called the Grassman because they believe it makes these large nest-like structures and domes out of grasses. So they call him the Grassman in Ohio. But let's get to the story. I'm going to give a bit of background info on what room I was in and how I can try to figure out what went on. The computer is located in the computer room, and this happened when we had the old computer, one that wasn't exactly the brightest, but it could still cause shadows when someone walked by. The computer is located near a window, which you can see the road from. And when cars drive by at night, you can see the lights reflecting on the walls when they travel across before they vanish. I was sitting in my computer chair talking to a friend online with my cat sitting behind me on the chair. I was bored and I just kept swaying back and forth in the spinning computer chair, watching my shadow behind me while waiting for my friend to reply to what I had sent. It was quiet and no one in the house was up because my brother was in the room snoring, loudly I might add, and my mom was upstairs, and if she were to come down, I would have heard the stairs creak. Well, I turned back to the computer to look at what my friend had just said when I heard a noise. I couldn't really tell what it was. It just sounded odd. So I turned to look at Autumn, my cat, who was staring at the doorway leading into the living room. I just looked up in time to see a black haze that looked as if someone were standing before it vanished. My cat jumped off the chair to go into the living room, and so I got up to follow to see if my dog was up or my brother had come out of his room, and when I stood in the door frame, I didn't see anything other than my dog sleeping under one of the tables. I really don't know what I saw, but it freaked me out quite a bit. Of course, I don't really fuss around about it anymore, but I thought I'd tell the story. Oh, and this happened at the beginning of December of 2006. I was 14 then, and I'm still that age now, so it wasn't too long ago. And you can believe this if you'd like or not. One possibility is that my eyes were playing tricks on me because it was really late into the night. Actually, it'd be extremely early in the morning, around 3:30 a.m., but I'm still unsure whether it was paranormal or not. And that says again, I do not fuss. I'm not familiar with that terminology. But I know there are spirits in my house, but they don't bother anyone. Well, and there is that, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, if they're there and they're not harming anything, then it's up to you if you want them there or not. But there's a few thoughts on that subject. All right. This one's a little long, but this will be our last story for the night, ladies and gentlemen. So, oh, hey, Sean, did you come in? Sean's in here? Okay. I'm just looking at the roster here to see who's all been in. Oh, Jim's here. Hey, Jim. Good to see you, brother. And Taz, good to see you. Oh, Taz, I did get your email, by the way. Thank you. And I'll read that on the next Friday or Saturday night that we don't have a guest. And this coming weekend, of course, we have guests both nights. But I love sharing your guys' stories on the nights when we're connected to the network, as many of you are aware, I guess. But it's just such great content, and it's really cool when you guys are contributing to the narrative we have on the show. I love hearing what you guys have experienced. That to me is, I literally, like, my favorite part of doing the show is reading what you guys have seen and been through. So this one comes out of the great state of Washington, which is just next door to us up here in the north of Idaho, but let's see what's going on over there. I'm hoping you might have a few answers or ideas for me, and I'll start at the start. The previous house we lived in was 25 miles away, and we lived there for about 4 years. There was a finished attic space there, and we used for storage, and we'd planned to make it a guest room, but never did because it was always cold, and we liked having the storage space. However, I always had an uneasy feeling when I was up there. My niece, who was 14 or 15 at the time, she was there, told me that there was a lady in there. She was dressed in 1800s clothing, and she didn't mean any harm. I sometimes noticed the same feeling in the kitchen. On an odd note, I baked significantly better than I ever have when I lived in that house, and maybe it was the oven. We've lived in our current house for just over 2 years, and the previous owner was pre-foreclosure when he obtained it, and she had been practicing witchcraft for some time. Hard to say for how long, but she was in her early 30s, and one thing I noticed is that all around the house there are what appeared to be purposely placed blackened handprints on doorways and near windows. They weren't completely obvious, but they were there. We painted and cleaned the house for a few weeks prior to moving in, and when we moved in, I noticed a more intense feeling like I had in our previous house's attic in several areas of this new house. We have the same finished attic type space in this house, which we also use for storage, but there is also a spare room up there, and my niece, then 16, told me there were many different spirits upstairs and that bad things happened here. We usually have the door to upstairs closed and only use it when moving things in or out of storage. Last week, my husband and I slept upstairs for 3 nights while out-of-town relatives stayed in our room, and the door was open the entire time. Yeah, oh geez. They got intimate on the 3rd night, and I feel this has meaning for some reason. Since we returned to downstairs, I've noticed that uneasy feeling several times around the house, particularly in the living room. I've noticed one of my dogs, a nearly 2-year-old female, staring near the hallway that exits the upstairs and enters the living room during the evening. She looks as if something is really interesting to her, as if there's a big bug crawling or another animal sitting there. That kind of look. The other dog, an older male, doesn't notice anything. Yeah, typical male. Typical male. Oh my God. The other night, my husband fell asleep on the couch. Since he doesn't believe in ghosts per se, he waited to say anything, but last night he told me that he woke up suddenly and saw something hazy on top of him and had felt weight was on him, and he was weirded out but not scared by it. And 2 days prior to that was his stepdad's funeral, and I feel he was passing through and saying hi, and this was related to many other sightings or other spirits in our house, but it pushed me to seek answers. Here's something else I want to throw out there, and that's why I thought that being intimate had meaning. Since we moved in that house, and not prior, I've had odd health-related interferences with my ability to be intimate often. I'm thinking there may be a relation there simply because they are new and the doctors think there's no medical reason for them. I've never felt threatened or worried about the spirits. I am, however, interested in hearing what people think about the situation because I'm feeling a bit out of sorts. Now, energies in a house can definitely have impacts in a lot of different ways. Now, she's already feeling this odd sensation. It could be interfering. When you think about intimacy and you know being intimate with somebody, it's not just a physical thing, especially if it's someone you love. It is also a very spiritual thing, and I don't mean to sound like a pig, but if it's done well, it also is a very energetic thing, and there is a serious transference of energy and a sharing and a building of energy, and certainly an uneasy presence could interfere with that. There's an old saying, a woman needs a reason to make love, a guy just needs a place. Well, for women, it is a very emotional experience, and for most guys too. I'm not being sexist, honestly, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me even a little that paranormal activity or paranormal energies present could definitely interfere with the ability to feel like you want to connect at that level. I think that there's definitely something to that, especially if this person is feeling uneasy in the house and having a real problem getting to that emotional state where they want to be intimate. So, I don't know, just my 2 cents, of course, but I think there's something to that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's installment of the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. Of course, I love bringing them to you. And again, let me pull up the list here. Let me pull up the show schedule. What are we on? Today's the 14th. Okay, so of course, tomorrow night will be another Bedtime Stories. Wednesday, it's Don and I. There's nothing. Oh, I think Cindy Goodbreak is coming on to discuss her Sasquatching and research and to her experiences on Wednesday night. So that'll be a rare Paranormal Portal occurrence, but we don't usually have guests on Wednesdays, but it just seems to work out best for her schedule. And so she'll be on Wednesday, but then Thursday will be another Bedtime Stories. Friday, the 18th, we'll be welcoming Dan Pruitt to the show, our paranormal investigator and friend, and he's been on a few times, and we've had a lot of good times, and hope he brings some experiments into the portal that we can learn and grow from as well. But then on the 19th, Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen, Linda Godfrey will be joining us, and Linda Godfrey, of course, is best known for her research and writing regarding the Dogman phenomena, and her books such as The Beast of Bray Road is absolutely amazing, and she also has written several other books, and I think her recent one is Monsters in America or something to that effect. But I feel bad that I can't recite titles, but names and titles are tough for me. It's my personal dyslexia. So if I don't have it in front of me, I'm always going to probably screw something up. But she'll be on then, and I was going to say something else. I forgot. Whatever it was, I forgot. But those are the shows coming up, ladies and gentlemen, so definitely stay tuned, keep tuning in. But every night at 7 p.m. Pacific time, there is a show for the Paranormal Portal, whether it's the Bedtime Stories or our 2-hour shows on Wednesday nights and Thursday and or Friday and Saturday, rather. Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. So those are our 2-hour shows. But I hope you guys are there for them and tune in and take part in those conversations. Now, the phone lines will be open on Friday and Saturdays. They always are. So although you see the phone number on the screen right now, it doesn't work until we're actually connected to the network, because that's the network call-in number. So you can always call that number and take part in our shows. Even when we have guests on, the guests are usually really excited to hear from you guys as well. So, but, just so you know, it's always available to you guys to be to join the conversation. So I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. And I will be back tomorrow night for more of the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. So have a good night, everybody, and have a wonderful Tuesday. What you saying? I need my own phone number. You're right. I do, Haxer. I know. But it's not. The thing is with the portal, ladies and gentlemen, is it does cost money. It costs, I have to have a really high bandwidth connection. I've got, lots of equipment and things that I'm working on and doing. And it's all, whether or not I want to encumber another expense by getting a separate phone number for the show. It's something I'm thinking about. As we grow, it's something we most definitely will do, but it's just, it's tough to roll all the expenses every month. So just bear with me, guys. There's lots of things coming down the pipe that we'll be doing with the portal, and we're really excited to do and to expand the reach and the scope of what the Paranormal Portal is. So and thank you guys for all of you who have done what you can to help. That's been amazing, and you just don't know how much it means. So thank you guys very much. Have a great night. Love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, and we'll be back tomorrow night for more of the Bedtime Stories. So hope you have a good night and sweet dreams.